We have a lot of receivers rising in value after all the trades that we saw. And I think that maybe it's time to go through cash out on a few of them. Maybe it's time to go through and sell a player or two that I actually really liked in fantasy football drafts. But before we get into it, go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football, leave any questions you have down there in that comment section. And of course, in that comment section, you will find a link to Underdog Fantasy. On Underdog Fantasy, you can check out all these cool player props. You can get into weekly best ball drafts. And when you sign up with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. And make sure you do it this week. Make sure you take advantage of it because I worked my butt off to get all this Derrick Henry half a rushing yard line. So if you go and deposit $10 on Underdog with promo code FLOCK, you'll have $20 in your account. Go take the more than half a rushing yard line on Derrick Henry that is only going to be available for people who use promo code FLOCK. Like I said, I worked my butt off to get you all that. So please make sure you go down to the link in the comment section, the link in the description, and take advantage of it before it's too late. But I think that's all we got. Let's go through and let's dive into a wide receiver that I'm honestly surprised he has any value at all at this point. Kadarius Toney. Now, we called Kadarius Toney a buy low receiver on the Dynasty channel about a month ago when you could have sold, a third round pick to get him. But here from a redraft perspective, with him going over to Kansas City, I will 100% admit this is a very exciting move for the Chiefs offense. Very similar to Nyheim Hines going over to Buffalo. I'm excited to see Kadarius Toney coming over to KC because if I'm looking at how this offense operates and the prototype of these receivers, I am projecting that Kadarius Toney is essentially a better version of McCole Hardman. And a better version of McCole Hardman may be interesting here in Kansas City, but we have to ask ourselves, what are the realistic expectations? Because Patrick Mahomes, through the first 7 weeks this year, my most drafted quarterback on Underdog, has been crushing it. Patrick Mahomes looking like he's right there with Josh Allen as MVP front runners, and he's had so much passing volume in this offense. However, with the way this offense operates, with the distribution of targets in said offense, I think it is going to be very difficult for us to ever go out there and get excited about any player not named Travis Kelce. So if we look at Kelce so far this year, the man's had 60 targets. The man's had 7 receiving touchdowns. You love that if you're a Travis Kelce owner. But outside of that, even if you got it all right, even if you went okay, well, Juju Smith-Schuster's going to be the wide receiver 1 in Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes is going to be a favorite for the MVP. He is going to crush and exceed everyone's expectations. Did you hit with Juju? Serious question. I would argue no, because with Juju Smith-Schuster, he's not gotten to 500 receiving yards. He has 2 receiving touchdowns on the season. And what is the reason for this? I think the reason for this is this target tree in Kansas City is so dispersed. If we are looking at wide receivers that have so far this season, or just players in general in Kansas City that have had more than 100 receiving yards through the first 7 weeks this year, you have Kelce, Juju, MVS, McCole Hardman, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jarrett McKinnon, and Sky Moore. You have so many players getting involved. We have random wide receivers getting on the football field that I've never even heard of past this point. That is very different than an offense like the Seattle Seahawks, than an offense like the Cincinnati Bengals, where in said offenses, you're going to have 2 or 3 guys getting targets. And outside of that, you really don't have to worry about a bunch of different leeches on an offense taking away volume here or there. In Kansas City, you do. I think Kadarius Toney will be a good real-life addition for the Kansas City Chiefs. And trust me, this makes me more excited about Patrick Mahomes. This makes me more excited to watch this Chiefs offense. But if anybody thinks that Kadarius Toney is a borderline top 24 wide receiver at this point, hell, go throw him in a package, go sell Kadarius Toney, and maybe throw him in with another receiver that we'll have later on in this video, someone like Terry McLaurin, and get Chris Godwin. Now, our next player is going to be a pair of teammates. Every single video essentially this entire year, whether it was in the off season or during this season, it was just me coming out here and crapping all over Courtland Sutton, saying, don't draft Courtland Sutton. If you made the mistake of drafting Sutton, sell him high, sell him high, sell him high. I don't know if I can say that anymore, because if we are looking at Courtland Sutton and we remove the 2 games where Jerry Jeudy was injured, so far this season, 72 receiving yards, 52, 74, and then the past 3 weeks, 14, 23, and 13. So I think that ship has sailed. If you have Courtland Sutton on your roster, I'm sorry, you're stuck with them. If you can somehow, some way sell him just off a name value, then yes, we would look to do so. But going over to the wide receiver we said was going to be the wide receiver 1 in this offense coming into the year in Jerry Jeudy, he himself is coming off a very impressive performance in that London game. And I would personally be somewhat intrigued to see what we could get for Jerry Jeudy. I do think that if you look at Jeudy, if we remove weeks 2 and 3 for both players, he is undoubtedly the wide receiver 1 in Denver. And I think we got that right. However, the question is, does it matter? Does it matter if Jerry Jeudy's the wide receiver 1 in Denver? Does it matter if he's a player that's younger than Kenny freaking Pickett and he may continue to improve? I would argue no, because if we are going and looking at the passing volume in Denver, it's non-existent. Russell Wilson has been straight up garbage, and very similar to if we were looking at the Denver Broncos in comparison to the Kansas City Chiefs. You have a ton of no-name players just consistently drawing targets. You have a deep tight end room. You have so many tight ends actually getting involved so far this season. You have running backs getting targeted out of the backfield, where with the Denver Broncos, I mean, it's a spot where I just don't necessarily see what the true upside is if Russell Wilson can't turn it around. Now, going over to our next receiver, someone I loved coming into the year, and I took my L a while ago, and I'm going to keep taking it. Deontay Johnson. With Deontay, loved him coming into this season because we were looking at consistent target volume, and I said, hell, this is going to be someone averaging 10 targets a game. Sign me up if I can get him as my wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3. Well, what is hilarious right now is Deontay Johnson has 76 targets. Deontay Johnson is 3rd in the NFL in targets. 3rd. However, despite being 3rd in targets, the man has yet to have a single game with 100 receiving yards. The man has yet to actually catch a touchdown. And I think that maybe Chase Claypool getting traded is going to be what allows us to finally wash our hands of Deontay Johnson, get him off our roster. Because while we were right about the target volume, that target volume being there speaks volumes. You know, we were saying to go through and sell Devin Singletary earlier in the year because everything was right for Devin Singletary. The man was a top 5 running back in the NFL in snaps played, and he wasn't scoring fantasy points. So it was a clear sell moment. It was the best situation possible. Where with Deontay Johnson, he already has all the targets in the world. He's not scoring fantasy points with the targets as is. So Chase Claypool getting traded is not, in my opinion, going to have a positive impact for Deontay. Can't really get more targets than he's already seen. If anything, this only bumps George Pickens. I wish I didn't draft Deontay Johnson in as many leagues as I did, but I think maybe this allows us to get off of him. Now going over to our next guy, someone else that we drafted everywhere, DJ Moore. With DJ Moore, I mean, I think the past 2 weeks here maybe going to allow us to get off of himself, because if we're looking at it, I mean, last week, 152 receiving yards, 11 targets, the receiving touchdown. We had the big Hail Mary play that everybody wanted to focus in on. 2 weeks ago, 10 targets again, 69 receiving yards, and the receiving touchdown. DJ Moore's had back-to-back weeks where he has absolutely crushed it. However, is this predictive going forward? I would argue no. Because with DJ Moore, very similar to Deontay Johnson, the issue so far this season hadn't been the targets, hadn't been the volume that DJ Moore was seeing. He was already getting about 8 targets a game. I know that some people are saying, okay, PJ Walker saving more. Maybe it was Matt Rule leaving this situation. Maybe it was Christian McCaffrey leaving. There are so many different variables that have changed that all of a sudden DJ Moore is producing like a different player. It comes down to your belief with the Carolina Panthers. If you truly believe that removing CMC, Matt Rule, and Baker Mayfield in this offense is going to make this Panthers team an offense that can actually score points going forward, then sure, keep DJ Moore. But I think this has been a small sample, back-to-back good performances from the Panthers, and I'm selling. Because if we look at the past 2 weeks, the Panthers have averaged almost 30 points a game over the past 2 weeks. Whereas if we look previously, 10 points scored, 15 points scored, 16 points scored, 22 points scored, 16 points scored, and 24 points scored. Previous to this, the Carolina Panthers had one of the worst offenses in the entire NFL. Even if they look better as of late, even if that has allowed DJ Moore to get away with scoring some fantasy points, I'm going to be selling them high. Now, going over to our next spot, super easy sell, in my opinion. Chase Claypool / Darnell Mooney. If you can get any value for either guy, you do it. I know you're not going to be able to sell these guys straight up and go out there and get someone that we like Chris Godwin. Trust me, I get it. I know you can't make that trade. But if we were to be able to use them as a sweetener in any deal, I would really like it. Because I found that there is a decent amount of hype surrounding Chase Claypool going over to the Chicago Bears. For whatever reason, it is the craziest thing in the world. I don't know if the Bears just have the most passionate fan base. The Bears just have the best fan base in the NFL. People lose their mind regarding Justin Fields. People are now projecting Justin Fields to be someone that is giving them consistent passing volume, and that's not the case. If you look at Justin Fields, the man has played 20 games in his NFL career. 5 of those games, he had 200 or more passing yards. 5 of 20, he's had more than 200 passing yards. Now, Justin Fields himself can be a viable fantasy football option for you, specifically with what he can do as a rusher. The man has 424 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. I mean, you love that. And I think if you want to pick up Justin Fields as a streaming quarterback, you go do you. You can 100% do it just because his rushing upside. But that does not mean he's going to be able to elevate these receivers. So far, looking at his passing yards this year, just looking at a game log of 121, 70, 106, 174, 208, 190, 179, 151. I agree. Claypool probably makes this offense better, but is it going to move Justin Fields from a quarterback averaging like 150 passing yards a game to 180 passing yards a game? 190? The passing volume's not there in Chicago. You got to sell these guys as a little sweetener in any deal that you have, because I don't even know if I really want them on our rosters. Now, going over to our next guy, Terry McLaurin. He's been a sell-high guy for us all year. John Dotson, I mean, just continues to miss football games. No idea when we're getting Dotson back at this point. But when Jahan Dotson comes back in, I think Dotson will take all excitement out for Terry McLaurin. Back-to-back weeks here, Terry McLaurin has been a very good receiver. 2 weeks ago, he had 5 receptions, 73 receiving yards, and the receiving touchdown. This past week, you had Terry McLaurin with 113 receiving yards and 6 receptions. I know Washington wins both games. A lot of people are excited about Heineke over Carson Wentz. However, if we take a step back, if you look at what you've had so far this season from Terry McLaurin, I mean, you're going to notice a trend with all these receivers that we've had on this list. I mean, I hope you've noticed it by now. Outside of Kadarius Toney, all these wide receivers are in bad offenses, and with Terry McLaurin, that has severely capped his touchdown upside. If you're looking at a fantasy points per game standpoint, here are the wide receivers that have scored more points than Terry McLaurin this season. Believe it or not, it's true. PPR league, points per game. Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, Devonta Smith, Juju Smith-Schuster, Christian Kirk, Tyler Boyd, Gabe Davis, Aiyuk, Lazard, Lockett. What I have personally found is that Terry McLaurin has a lot more value this in fantasy football. I would also make the argument his situation is going to get worse going forward whenever you have Jahan Dotson back in, because Dotson looked damn good at the beginning of the year. Now, going over to our last guy, Brandon Aiyuk. With Aiyuk, I mean, you are looking at back-to-back impressive weeks. Really, a 3-game stretch here where Aiyuk has been pretty damn good. 3 weeks ago against Atlanta, 8 receptions, 83 receiving yards, multiple receiving touchdowns. 2 weeks ago against the Chiefs, 82 receiving yards, 7 receptions. This past week, 6 receptions, 81 receiving yards, and the receiving touchdown. So this is why we're selling him. Notice the trend. 83 to 82 to 81. When it's all said and done, if this trend continues, he will be at, obviously I'm joking there, but the reason we're looking to sell Brandon Aiyuk is just the thesis that coming out of the bye, when you have Deebo Samuel fully healthy, when you will have Christian McCaffrey fully implemented in this offense, when you have George Kittle fully healthy as well, there are going to be so many cooks in the kitchen that I don't know if you're going to have enough production to go over to Brandon Aiyuk. I don't see how it's possible. While the per game numbers have looked fine, while the past month has looked fine, you have to keep in mind, You didn't have Christian McCaffrey a large portion of the season. His first game in, didn't really play. George Kittle missed a large chunk of the year. Deebo Samuel, been limited the past few weeks and missed this past week entirely. So I think the arrows should be trending down with Aiyuk with where his opportunities going forward. And also, I'm assuming that this is a team that still wants to run the ball. Now, I think that's all I got for you. Of course, thank you so much for checking out the video. If you have not done so already, go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscribe button if you want to come out to our live streams. And most importantly, go take advantage of the Derrick Henry over under half a rushing yard line. Work my butt off to get y'all it. And when you sign up for promo code FLOCK, only promo code FLOCK users on Underdog are going to get that special free bet. And you are also going to get that 100% deposit match up to $100. So please go deposit $10, $20 in your account. Go take the over on Derrick Henry at half a rushing yard line with that $20. I worked my butt off to get you that deal. But thank you so much. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great day and hope we get to see you in the live stream tonight.